Hi guys, I miss you already. I'm going to try to make this very similar to where if you were sitting in my classroom, you'd get the exact same lesson as you are at home. So anyway, go to your Canvas. I want you to click on the calendar. So you're going to go to the calendar, and today is the 10th. So you're going to click on the lesson and get the lesson pulled up. You can also click on the assignment and get the assignment pulled up as well. So today we're going to continue on with our proofs. There's only one thing that I'm adding to it, so it's a pretty short lesson today. So today we're going to talk about proving segment relationships. So just a quick reminder, reflexive property is when something equals itself. Remember, I think reflection in the mirror, you're identical to yourself. Reflexive property, equal to itself. Oh, whoops. Symmetric property is kind of like the converse. It's the flip. If AB equals CD, then CD equals AB. So I want you to notice reflexive property is only talking about one segment, segment AB. That's it. Symmetric property is talking about two different segments, segment AB and segment CD. Transitive property is talking about three segments. So that's a way to tell the difference too. Transitive property is like the law of syllogism, where you take out what's repeated. So if AB equals CD and CD equals EF, we can take out what's repeated and say that AB equals EF. So those are those different properties that you're going to have to make sure that you know. So let's see if you can remember which properties these are. So let's try this one. If KL equals YT and YT equals SD, then I can take out what's repeated and say KL equals SD. So which property is that? I hope you said transitive property. Transitive property. Okay, what about this one? If AD equals GH, then GH equals AD. That's kind of like the converse, the flip. That is symmetric property. And then finally, what's the one where it equals itself? XZ equals XC? That is reflexive property. So I hope you remember those. Another quick reminder, make sure that you know all the different properties. Addition property just means you're adding the same thing on both sides. That is not combining like terms. Remember, we call combining like terms simplify. So addition property is when you add the same thing on both sides. Subtraction when you're subtracting on both sides. Multiplication when you're multiplying on both sides. Division when you're dividing on both sides. And then we talked about reflexive property already, symmetric property, and transitive property. Substitution property is when you replace something with something else. And then distributive property, you guys remember that, where you take that outside thing and you multiply it by both things inside the parentheses. So let's do a couple of examples. Oh, I forgot. We're adding one thing to proofs today. This is it. It is called segment addition postulate. So 99% of the time, your very first reason on proofs will always be given. But there's that 1% of the time that it won't be. So today, that's what we're adding. So this is called segment addition postulate, and we've talked about this before. All it says is if I take AB and add it to BC, I get the entire segment AC. So if I take this portion of the segment, add it to this portion of the segment, I get the entire segment. So let's look at two different examples. So I've got this picture here. It says XZ, and then it gives me the length of XZ, and then ZY, and gives me the length of ZY. So I'm given that XY equals 42, but I want you to notice that first statement is not my given. So you do not put given on that first statement. But what the first statement says is that if I take XZ and add it to ZY, I get the entire segment XY, and that is called segment addition postulate. So I'm just going to put seg add to abbreviate it. So my first reason was not given. Now notice, XZ got replaced to 3 times n plus 4. ZY got replaced to 3N. XY got replaced to 42. What is it called when you replace something with something else? That is called substitution. And then what we do is we say, well, what happened from the second line to the third line? What changed? Well, I took this 3 and I multiplied it by both things in the parentheses. I hope you remember that is called distributive property. And then what happens from the third line to the fourth line? I hope you notice that I just combined like terms. What do we call it when we combine like terms? We call it simplify. And now what do I do to get from step D to step E? What happened on that equation? Well, I subtracted 12 on both sides, so subtraction property. And then what happened from E to F? We divided by 6, so division property. Division. I've got one more example. So this one said, I have this picture. It has AC and CD, and I'm given that C is the midpoint of AD. Now notice my given really does match my first line. C is the midpoint. If they match, it is given. So 99% of the time it will be given. Okay, so C is the midpoint of AD. So anytime in a proof, if you see a word in a proof, the next line is always going to be definition of that word. So my word is midpoint. This will be definition of midpoint. The reason why I can say that AC equals CD is only because I know C is the midpoint. So that's what tells me that AC and CD are equal to each other. So now that I know they're equal, I'm going to replace AC with 4x. I'm going to replace CD with 2x plus 12. So when you replace something with something else, it is substitution. And then what happened from C to D? I subtracted 2x on both sides. So that's subtraction. It is not simplify. I'm not just combining like terms. Combining like terms is when they're on the same side of the equals. So I actually subtracted 2x on both sides, subtraction property. And then from D to E, I divided by 2. So that is division property. Okay, my lights go off. If not, people are moving out there. So my lights went off. All right, so I've got a little joke. I think it's cute. So they're fishing, and the water split. He's like, Moses, stop it, because he's splitting the water so he can't fish. By the way, I went fishing this weekend. My husband caught 5 trout. You know how many I caught? 0. Anyway, let's move on. And I'm very competitive. It was hard. Okay, go ahead and open up your assignment. And on your assignment, I thought this was pretty cute too. It says, can't get it. Go, Shawty. It's Sherbert Day, because it's Sherbert. Anyway, it's pretty cute. Okay, so on question 1, you're going to have to do the different properties that it tells you. So this is kind of review over symmetric, reflexive, distributive property, all those different properties. So symmetric property is, remember, is like the converse. If AB equals BC, then you can flip it and say BC equals AB. Reflexive property is when it equals itself, identical to itself. So BA would equal BA. BA, go BA. And then you know the distributive property. Transitive property is the one where it takes out what's repeated. So if AB equals XZ and XZ equals MN, I can take out what's repeated and say AB equals MN. Make sure you're using capitals in your answers and no spaces. So on the first one, you're going to do what the property tells you to do. On the second one, you're going to name the property. make sure that you spell everything correctly. I have the stuff up here, how you're supposed to spell it and how you're supposed to word it. Do not put the parentheses around it. But if it's reflexive property, you will put reflexive. If it's symmetric property, just put SYM. If it's transitive property, just put trans. Substitution, put subs. Segment addition, you can say seg add. So don't put the parentheses, but put what the words that are in the parentheses. So this says if AB plus BC equals EF plus FG and AB plus BC equals AC, then I can take out what's repeated and say EF plus FG equals AC. So that would be, what's the one where you take out what's repeated? So you can just put trans and spell it just like that. Don't put the parentheses. So the next one says if Q is between P and R, then PR equals PQ plus QR. That's the one we just learned today, and that is called segment addition. So you can put seg add. Notice the next one. If AB equals BC and BC equals CE, we can take out what's repeated and say AB equals CE. What's it called when you take out what's repeated? Trans. And then what's the one where it equals itself? I hope you said reflexive. Make sure you spell it correctly. Spell it correctly. All right, moving on. Okay, and you have more, so if you need help, just let me know. You can email me with questions anytime. Then we start with those proofs. We've got proofs. You've got the drop downs where you pick. If it matches, if the given matches the first statement, it is given. But if it doesn't match, it's not. Let's see, all the drop downs, proofs. We have a lot of practice on proofs, don't we? Oh, and then I have a little bit of review because you will have a test coming up. So this one, number 13, is the Fibonacci sequence. Do you guys remember the Fibonacci sequence? That's the one where you add the two previous numbers together. So 1 plus 1 is 2, 1 plus 2 is 3, 2 plus 3 is 5, and so on. Through any 2 points, there is exactly one. Through any 2 points, there's exactly one what? Line. So L-I-N-E. Spell it correctly. And then a plane contains at least how many non-collinear points? Do you remember? 3. And then the intersection of 2 lines. What's the intersection of 2 lines? It's a point. It's a point. And then, what's the intersection of 2 planes? The intersection of 2 planes is a line. So I do have some review questions and finishing with proofs. If you have any questions, please message me. I am here for you. I hope you have a great day.